Hey everyone, Jim Coventry from RotoWire here. It's week 11. I am with my good friend and gambling.com teammate John Ryan, a 28-year pro bettor. In the last 24 months, he's 74% against the spread on his max bets. In the NFL alone, 65% over the last 3 years. You could catch him at John Ryan Sports 1. He is a must follow. You need to follow his information, get his betting trends, his betting advice. You need to make money. John Ryan, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great after that introduction, Jim. And I can say the same thing about you because your DFS stuff continues to have me tweak my lineups and I am cashing instead of not cashing. Now, cashing is cashing. It's, not the $1 million prize, but we all aspire to win. But I do a lot better listening to your advice and expertise, and your player props are second to none. They've been just absolutely tremendous.
Thank you, John. Well, let's give the people what they want. John Ryan is going to break down the Eagles Colts. I'll give you a little background on this game. The Eagles are coming off their first loss of the year on Monday Night Football. Their defensive tackle, Jordan Davis, he was a rotational player, but since he's been out, that middling run defense has turned into a bad one. The Eagles will be without Dallas Goedert, their tight end, obviously Jordan Davis, and their slot corner, Avonte Maddox. On the Colts side, they had a win in their first game with Jeff Saturday as head coach. They blindsided the Raiders by starting Matt Ryan, and the Raiders' game plan for Sam Ehlinger. Not good. Jonathan Taylor, first 100-yard game since week 1. Offensive line looked a little better. John, break this game down for everyone.
Well, I'll tell you, the Jeff Saturday situation is a breath of fresh air, to say the least, for that team. And unfortunately for Frank Reich, it wasn't working out. He was forced to play Ehlinger, from what we learned from the inside. And his future was already stamped many weeks before he was dismissed. But in comes Saturday, and he has immediate command of the locker room. You know why? If you don't know who he is, Google him, look him up. He was the center for Peyton Manning for more years than I think I've been around, Jim. He is a veteran among veterans. I think he was somewhere in the mid-20s as a center in the NFL, and that's unprecedented. So when he walks in that locker room, I bet you that locker room gets quieter than being in a church. And they're paying attention, they're focused, and he brings a tremendous amount of enthusiasm. And he has, he's been in the Super Bowls. He's done it all. So why not listen to the guy? And I think that's going to really motivate this team down the stretch here. And I do think the Eagles are in trouble here. Dallas Goedert is, I think, and this may be controversial, I think he's the most important offensive player on the Eagles side of the ball. Even more important than Brown is, or Devontae Smith, or Miles Sanders. They all work together very, very well. But now with him out, he does so many things that do not appear in the box score. And that is my biggest concern with the Eagles going forward here, coming off that first loss. And that's a slap across the face when you go 8-0 and then you get pretty well beat by a divisional rival at home. So they're kind of reeling. And I do have a betting system here that supports the Colts, Jim. We're simply going to bet on underdogs. And that underdog's defense has allowed 100 or fewer rushing yards in 3 consecutive games. That's all there is to it. 53-25 with 2 pushes against the number. That's 68% winners over the last 5 seasons. I had thought earlier in the week, Jim, 7.5 was way too many. It's down to 6.5. I still like it at 6.5, and I would recommend a sprinkle on the money line.
And you're right. These dogs, especially these mid-range dogs, there have been a lot of outright wins, John. So you're calling it really well. The short dogs, not as much, but in this range where you're talking, we're getting a lot of weirdness in the NFL. I just want to add one thing to your great point about Dallas Goedert. And one thing that Philly was able to do is when they would run a bunch of receivers on one side, Dallas Goedert was often the isolated receiver on the other side of the field. So as you're intimating, he allowed them so much more flexibility on offense, and he could win on that isolated matchup. And it just made their offense so more versatile. They're going to Grant Calcaterra, Jack Stoll. That's nowhere close to the stratosphere that Goddard's in. So I love the overall breakdown, and I love how you point out how important Dallas Goedert was. Now, John's going to have another game for you, but I'm going to give you a few prop bets here. John and I will go back and forth, do our thing, give you all the information we can. I have 4 props for you this week. And again, if you like the rationale, you bet them. If you don't like the rationale and you see it another way, go the other way. Dak Prescott over 250.5 yards against Minnesota. Now, in the first game, Prescott came back from the injury. I called that he would be limited, and he was. They limited him. They ran heavy. In his last 2 games, 250, 265 yards. Now, Minnesota, they've given him at least 326 passing yards in 3 of their last 4 games. The only QB who didn't hit it, Taylor Heineke. No great shakes there, right? Now, bigger deal. Minnesota without cornerback Cam Dantzler, a starting cornerback, playing at a solid level. Not great, but solid. And also, Dalvin Tomlinson. He's a defensive end. He's one of their 3 main pass rushers, and that's going to give Prescott a little extra time. One last thing. This is a pass funnel defense, we call this. They stop the run. They're a top 3 or 4 defense against the run. They invite you to pass the ball because you don't run on them. So Prescott sails over 250.5 yards. Let's stay in the same game, John. Let's go to Dalvin Cook. Let's go over 79.5 rushing yards. Now, Cook has only gone over this total in 3 of his last 5 games. But in the 2 games he didn't, he faced excellent run defenses. Dallas in the last 3 games, 138 yards to Aaron Jones, 99 yards to Khalil Herbert, and yes, 79 yards to Jamal Williams. Dalvin Cook is an outstanding runner. We saw last week he still has the juice to pull off those 80-yard runs. Now, even you want to go back with this Dallas defense. Go back when they played Washington. The trio of Gibson, McKissick, and Jonathan Williams, they put up 137 yards. Finally, on the season. Dallas gives up 112 rushing yards per game. The running back, Alexander Madison, only sees a few carries a game. Cook, again, should flirt with 100 yards here. 2 more props. Jonathan Taylor. I'm going with John on the bet here with the Colts. I go over 85.5 rush yards. Now, he finally got back on track last week. He had 147 yards. His first time he even hit 80-something yards since week 1. But you mentioned the Jeff Saturday thing, John. I know you can't come in 3 days and coach up an offensive line. But like you said, you certainly can motivate them. That line, for the first time in a while, they looked decent blocking. And that's all Taylor needs. Now, Damian Pierce faced this Philly defense, 137 yards a couple weeks ago. Last week, Brian Robinson went over that 85 total that Taylor needs with 86. Now, Robinson needed 26 carries to get there, but Robinson is nowhere near the back Taylor is. So, one more. A.J. Brown. We're going to stick in the same game. I agree with John. Colts are going to win, but A.J. Brown's going to have to help them offensively. Indy is one of these, like Minnesota, a pass funnel defense. They're a great run defense. Grover, Stewart, and DeForest Buckner up front. You don't run on them. So they're going to have to pass. No Dallas Goedert. The receiving tree just got smaller. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. And Indy plays zone 79% of the time. When we're looking at that, those crossers that A.J. Brown runs in the zone, he's finding those holes. And guess what he's doing after the catch? John, he's running. So he's the one player on that offense that's going to feast in this game. And Indy had been a good pass defense. Last week, Devontae Adams nailed him for 126 yards. Terry McLaurin a couple weeks ago, 113. They've shown more vulnerabilities. So those are my plays for props. Before we get to John's Let's Play, if you're watching on YouTube, please smash the like and subscribe button. We'd appreciate it greatly. And if you like the content at RotoWire, we'll get you 2 free days behind the paywall without a credit card. Just an email address. Go to rotowire.com/try. John, we've been waiting for the heavy hitter to come back. You're going to talk about the Jets Patriots. Now, both teams coming off the bye, right? Both are over 500. Jets 6-3, Pats 5-4. Week 8, these teams just played recently. The Pats beat the Jets 22-17. Now, the Jets were winning 10-6 at the half before the Pats came up with 13 straight points to put the game away. Zach Wilson, big numbers, but his interceptions were back-breaking. John, how do you like this game broken down?
Well, I think, New England has beaten them 13 consecutive times, and I think that's coming to an end today or tomorrow in Sunday 1 o'clock action. And the reason is that the Jets are a team that is not the Jets that we're used to seeing. And I still maintain, I've said it for weeks now, they have not reached the top potential that this team has. If there was ever a matchup where we're going to see their best performance of the year so far, it would be great against the New England Patriots. I mean, what more motivation do you need against a divisional foe that has used you as a doormat for about the last 5 years or more? So I think the Jets here with +3, and that line also kind of smells a little bit funny too. Why is it a +3? Shouldn't the Patriots be favored by 5, 5.5, 6? I think the market is telling us that the Jets is the right side here. Jets defense ranks fourth in the National Football League, allowing 4.8 yards per play, Jim. And they're also in the top 5 in points per play and also yards per point, which are 3 of the major ratios that go into my models. We also have a situation with the prediction part of it that the Jets are going to score 20 or more points, and they're going to have the same or fewer turnovers. And granted, it's hard to predict turnovers, but when these situations all align and come together, the Jets are in a very powerful 78% winning situation if they score 20 and have the same or fewer turnovers than the Patriots. So I am all over the Patriots here. And lastly, I have a couple angles, Jim. Jets are 37-19 ATS, 65% in road games when the total's between 35.5 and 41 points. So low scoring expectation NFL type games. They do very, very well. Jets are 20-8, use the first half line. If you like the first half line this game, this is for you. Playing against a team with a winning record between 51 and 60%, and the game occurs in the second half of the season. Jets are 14-3 against the number using the first half line, covering 6 or 7 of the past 8 games. I like either one, Jim. First half, if you like that, or full game.
Oh my gosh. So the one thing, everybody out there, and you're figuring it out, you're watching this show, we don't just tell you who to pick. You get a bunch of information, and you're making the decision. You listen to what we have to say. If you agree with it, you make the bet. If you don't, you pull back. But at least John and I, we're going to do everything we can to uncover every angle to get these games right for you as often as possible. I'm going to give you a few DFS plays before we get out of here. So first of all, quarterback. Justin Fields is still underpriced at 7,600. He is playing Atlanta. Atlanta can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. Bad defense. Fields has run for at least 80 yards in 4 of his last 5 games. He has multiple touchdown passes in his last 3 games. Fields has been on a fantasy football tear. Dak Prescott, we already talked about him in the prop bets. We also obviously like him for DFS. Josh Allen playing Cleveland. That game got moved to the Dome. No cold weather. No snow. Fast track. Josh Allen, the elbow, look, last week, to me, looked fine. I think another week removed, go along with him. Running back, you want to go contrarian. I don't think a lot of people are playing Nick Chubb against the Bills, but that game could shoot out between the running of the Browns and the passing of the Bills. If this game stays close, Chubb could have himself a massive fortune. The one area Buffalo's weak on defense is against the run, and Nick Chubb has that offensive line that's going to give him room to operate. Dalvin Cook, we already talked about in the prop bet. We love him here. If you want to go really contrarian, super contrarian, 4,800. And this is all theory. Kyron Williams of the Los Angeles Rams. They're playing the Saints. Cooper Kupp is out. They have very little means to run the ball. 2 more offensive linemen are out. They have to use the screen game. They used Kyron Williams in garbage time last week. My guess is his role grows. He is one of the only players with explosive ability left. My guess is they get him involved. It's a theory. He's a dart throw, contrarian, cheap DFS play. All right, a couple quick receivers here. We already talked about A.J. Brown, so we go with him. We love Dak Prescott, so we also love CeeDee Lamb and tight end Dalton Schultz because it's a narrow target tree in Dallas. They're both going to be the recipients of that yardage. We like Justin Fields. Darnell Mooney, he has a 12 and an 8 target game recently, so that's starting to step up for him. Cheap one, 4,300. Paris Campbell. John likes those Colts against the Eagles. Well, Paris Campbell with Matt Ryan, the last 3 games they played together, we're seeing double-digit targets each game. You can't fade that. Last one, a tight end, Tyler Conklin. He faced this New England defense a few weeks ago, 2 touchdowns. Is he going to get 2 again? Probably not. But with the pass rush that gets generated, the middle of the field passes are going to be there. Bill Belichick is not game planning to take away Tyler Conklin. And if you want a defense, you want to go somewhat cheap, the Steelers against the Bengals. TJ Watt's back. No Jamar Chase. Joe Burrow's going to get some pressure here. John, any final words on gambling today?
Well, I like to say, bet with your head, not over it, and may all the wins be yours. That's how I end the shows. But, nothing truer can be said, especially if you're a new bettor out there. A lot of you probably done, 10 bets, and they've all gone extraordinarily well, and you think that the sports books might be not that smart. But I'm telling you, after 28 years, the betting markets are very smart. And as soon as you think you're smarter than them, they have a tendency to humble you very quickly. So keep that in mind.
100%. We got a couple quick questions here. We're actually the same person, so let's see. Same game, that Dallas and Minnesota game. Thoughts on Kirk Cousins' passing yards against the Dallas defense? I want to point this out to everybody, John. Last week, people saw on a big nationally televised game, Aaron Rodgers have a big game against the Cowboys. I want to explain why that happened. Linebacker Anthony Barr was out. Sounds like no big deal. It was a huge deal. Micah Parsons was not weaponized as a pass rusher. They only rushed him on 11 plays. Normally, it would be double or triple that. He was moved into more of a traditional linebacker role. Killed him. The second thing, not only were they without their slot corner, Jordan Lewis, but they lost Anthony Brown, one of their other starting corners, to a concussion. Therefore, no pass rush because Parsons wasn't used right. Down 2 corners, Aaron Rodgers took advantage. Kirk Cousins in this game, not going to throw a ton. It's going to be Dalvin Cook on the ground. That's where you attack Dallas. You don't attack them through the air when they're back to health. Barr is supposed to be back. Anthony Brown's back. I say under on that. And, oh my gosh, John, we got a great comment here. I'm actually going to read this for everybody. What an amazing show. Maybe you both should do a weekly show discussing every NFL game. We'd love watching it. Amazing information. John and I wish we had the time for that. We have so many different projects we do for our individual business and companies, but thank you for that. All right, for John Ryan, and you follow John at John Ryan Sports 1. Follow me at Jim Coventry NFL. For John and myself, good luck in Week 11, and we will talk soon.